thought I'd make this video for anybody who thinks that there's some matrix or some controlling hidden hand at play, right? And I'm not actually going to say that you're wrong, right? Because I've been there. I've been to see people who talk about this type of stuff. I've studied it for years, like over 10 years probably at this point. I wouldn't even say you're wrong. I wouldn't say that there are not psychopaths, sociopaths, and the higher echelons of society who pull a few strings, right? But what I've found is that I needed somebody to blame. I needed a group of people that I could pinpoint and say, they're the problem. I'm not succeeding because of that. And that could be money, controlling the money supply. That's true. There were major issues with that, and I do believe that that's purposefully done, right? Inflation's coded into fiat currency. Yep. Purposely makes people poorer. Yeah, I think that's probably true. You have law. You know, there's quite literally countless laws, and generally speaking, the more laws there are, the more lawless a society as a rule, because you can't keep on top of all that law and legislation and all that other good stuff. So yeah, you know, I see that the secret society groups, and people talk about Freemasons and the Club of Rome and all that other good stuff. As but you could go countless of those as well, right? When I was about probably my early 20s, something happened to me. I've got no idea. It was just like something just opened up in my consciousness. I had to stop playing football, and more or less immediately I just started picking up books and consuming personal development stuff, seeing the world in a completely different way to what I was when I was playing football, which was just head down. I had nothing else to think about. It was just that. And it was a sort of expansion of awareness, if you like, where everything changed in an instant. I saw the world with different eyes. The content in the world wasn't necessarily different, but the context, which is like the perception of the world, completely changed, right? And with that came conspiracy people, and surrounding myself with like people who studied money and studied law and studied these secret societies and whatever else. And you can sort of create a matrix for yourself in your own mind when you study these things. Again, I'm not saying a lot of it isn't correct. It probably is. But what good is that doing you? Being aware of things like this is positive, I suppose. Being aware of it and being able to maneuver around it and laugh at it, which is what I think is probably the best thing to do, because it breaks down the barriers. But what good is it doing you other than being a slave to your own mind that this stuff is going on? What benefit is it to you? You wouldn't care about a matrix or whatever you like to perceive it as, a controlling hand, if you were successful in life. That's the only reason that you shout about it. I know, because I've been there. If you don't like it, do something about it. Change the world and make it better, according to your worldview. Keep moaning and complaining and thinking that there's something other than yourself that's going to change the world. You know, if you've got peace inside yourself, you'll notice that peace will surround you in the world as well. If you've got happiness like an internal happiness, then the external world creates that condition, you know. It's the other way around to what people perceive it to be, which is when XYZ happens, then there will be an XYZ internal state, where it's actually the opposite way around. Which is a lot of the time why psychology doesn't work. You know, the so-called mental health industry is pretty flawed in my opinion, hence the reason it's getting worse and worse, but that's probably for a different video. So the Matrix, I'm going to keep using that term, but use the word that you really resonate with. The Matrix isn't, in my opinion, something out there, it's something in here, something that you create for yourself. Even the film, The Matrix, which was incredibly advanced for its time, more of a documentary perhaps than a film, in my opinion is more a myth of the psyche of man's mind than it is of the external world. You have all these different characters that I perceive to be archetypes within each of our psychologies, right? Whereas most people, again, because they're so externally motivated, they say, oh, that Agent Smith are these type of people. Whereas to me, Agent Smith is an archetype that we carry out, a mask that we wear to fit into society. Because again, it's very easy to blame. It's easy to pass the buck to other people so that we don't have to take a look at ourselves and how we're acting, how we're behaving, how we're how so-called successful that we're being in relation to you know, what the world's telling us should be a success. Because that isn't accurate either. Success is defined by you and you alone. It's not defined by anybody else. If you go to a monastery, success to the monks might be enlightenment, whereas success to the capitalist is maybe just you know, bringing their vision to light and being paid accordingly. So if you really want to exit the Matrix, turn inwards, shut up for 15 minutes, turn the world off for 15 minutes and just sit there in silence. Notice these thoughts that are coming about and this stream of consciousness that is usually just conditioned thinking. You know, 90% of the thoughts that we think are just repetition, most of them irrelevant. So that repetitive thinking all the time, if you just shut up and just let them be there and witness them, you'll notice the matrix that you're creating for yourself. You'll notice that a lot of your worldview has been placed there. So this so-called external matrix that most, you know, it seems to attract young men, because obviously they're the fighters of the world and whatever, the ones that are a bit more rebellious. Until you realise that it's all an internal game, we'll keep putting the blame out there, keep passing the buck, passing the responsibility off. So the real matrix is one's head, what's going on in one's mind. I had a friend who he was mad into conspiracies and whatever. Talk about the Skull and Bones Society and all this, and the Club of Rome and the World Health Organization, the World Economic Forum and all that other stuff. Like, yeah, a lot of it's just nonsense, a lot of psychopathy going on and whatever else, but I think we give these people too much, you know, we think they're better than what they are. It's like these people haven't got that wisdom to be able to pull off what they can pull off, what people think they might be able to pull off. They're just humans, man. I don't think they've got the capability to do what people say they can do. And my mate, who was mad into all this stuff, he would sit there all day and study this. He'd go to work and he'd have it on a podcast and whatever, but he wasn't creating anything. All he was doing was consuming this information. And what for? What are you doing with it? Are you just creating a second so-called matrix in your own head? So you can open up and free that up when you recognise that a lot of all this stuff is just, it's procrastination. It's a form of escape, a form of victimhood and blame. Because once you take control of your own life, like that's, okay, be aware of things that are going on, but they don't consume you. It's not something that you go out of your way to look at. And as I said at the beginning, you sort of laugh at this stuff. Not because it's funny what's going on, but because the context of it is funny. Like, how are we giving all this so much attention when you could be the one changing the world rather than keep looking out there and blaming them? So yeah, break free of your own mind, your own conditioning and your own patterns of thinking, and that's when you'll break through the real matrix.